Good morning and welcome to Inside Cottonwood. I am Ron Corbin, Cottonwood City Manager, and I have two wonderful guests this morning. I have our Fire Marshal, Rick Contreras, and our Building Official, Paul Hodges. Welcome.
Thank you.
Good to see you.
Nice seeing you. So before we get started on today's topic, which is going to be about building codes and our fire codes, Rick, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do for the city?
Well, I've been in Cottonwood a long time. I have worked for the city for over 20 years. I'm the fire marshal for Cottonwood Fire Medical, and I've got to do a lot of different things within the city. So it's been a great ride, and I really like living here, raising my family here.
Awesome. So what does a fire marshal do? What is a fire marshal responsible for?
Oh, well, we get to do a lot of different things. Code compliance, engineering, enforcement, the fun part of the job that nobody likes to do. And one of the greatest things is public education. We teach from the daycare all the way to senior citizens, all out throughout the community. Cottonwood Fire has an amazing program that we teach public education.
Awesome. And Paul, you're new to the organization, aren't you?
Yes, I'm new. I just came here in December of last year.
Well, how is it so far?
My wife and I love it here. We really love this area of Arizona.
It is beautiful. I was out and about last night after the rain and the green, and it's like you forget you're in the middle of the desert. You forget you're in Arizona. So where'd you come from, and what kind of experience do you have as a building official?
I came from California.
I'm sorry.
Me too. That's why I always say that I'm glad I'm from California. Right. I grew up in construction. My father was a contractor. I became an inspector about 18 years ago.
Wow. Worked
for a large city. Well, it started small, but it was over 100,000 by the time I left there.
Wow.
And then I went to King City as the building official. I was the building official there for 3 years, and then my wife and I decided we wanted to move to Arizona, so I started looking for a job, and this one came open, and here I am.
Very nice. Well, we're glad to have you very much. So what does a building official do?
Well, the building official is responsible for code compliance, just like the fire marshal. We have a set of codes that are mandated by the state for us to enforce. I do the plan check, so a set of plans comes in. I look at it to make sure that it meets the code compliance, and then I approve that, and then I issue the permit, and then I'm responsible for making sure the inspections get done properly.
So if someone wants to build or do something, the permits they put in for, you review all the permits before they get approved?
Yes, I do.
Very good. Well, thank you both for being here this morning. In front of council last time, and I think tomorrow, May 21st, we have the final reading of our update of our building and fire codes. So how did we get here? Where have we been? What codes have we been going by? And what are we getting ready to implement if approved by council tomorrow night? Who wants to go first?
There's a code cycle that happens every 3 years by the International Code Council. We adopted the 2012 fire code, building codes, and there was a 2015 code that we did not adopt. And most of the people in the state of Arizona, the Yavapai County, and City of Cottonwood want to go to the 2018, and we're in that process right now of hopefully going through that July 1st.
Okay.
And it's not just Yavapai County, it's pretty much the entire state. Coconino, Camp Verde, Clarkdale, we're all adopting the same code so that a contractor can work in the northern part of the state, come down here, and he knows that he has the same codes to work with. In the past, we've been behind several code cycles, and we're just trying to get all caught up and be on the same code cycles altogether.
Very good. So we've been talking about these codes, whether they be fire or building codes. What are they? What's the purpose of a city adopting and having these codes? What does it do for the community?
Well, there's two big reasons to adopt it. Number one is for your insurance. When the newer the codes, insurance companies use our codes to rate the cities as far as building safety, and that makes your insurance premiums go higher or lower depending on where you fit into that category. And then number two is public safety. We need to ensure that the buildings are properly maintained. properly built, properly maintained. We have the exiting that's required. We have the lighting that's required.
Okay, so it has to do with keeping the community safe in our buildings, whether it be people going to businesses or their homes. It just makes us a safer community.
Correct.
Which is a great thing.
Right.
Similar with the fire code?
Absolutely. Unfortunately, the old saying is that the fire code's written in blood. You know, bad things happened a long time ago, and so they had to change these codes, and they're constantly looking at updating them. They're set up by groups from all over the country that have a lot of experience, and they set forth these codes. And, you know, like schools, for instance, you know, a long time ago, they were not safe for fire. Today they are. However, there's another threat threatening these schools. So, you know, as things come along, new systems, biodiesel, lockdowns at schools, we have all these different things that have to be addressed through the fire code as the need arises.
So it's a big process to go through to update the fire codes and the building codes. I've been in several organizations where it can be up to a year sometimes because of public input and because it really starts internationally, nationally, and then it works its way down to the local communities. Correct. So before we go to break, what have we done to include the community in our process? That kind of goes with, is there anything special about Cottonwood, either in the way we got here or the way the rules are implemented and the process? How can others get involved?
Well, one of the ways is to attend city council meetings. This is where all the information is brought to the citizens, is at our council meetings. And if you have never been to a council meeting, you need to go. It's interesting to see how things work in our government.
Okay, so if it's discussed at a council meeting, then I'm assuming we post all of these things online, and so our contractors or people interested could go online ahead of time and look at the rules and kind of see what the changes are going to be, and then they can comment or contact their council member or contact City Hall and make recommendations or voice concerns or those kinds of issues. They can participate and possibly have an impact.
Well, yes, they can. Most of the contractors around here have known since we adopted the 2012 that we were going to go to the 2018 right away. Oh,
that's right. It wasn't that long ago we adopted the 2012.
It was just last in December that right after I got here, the process was starting, and right after I got here, we actually adopted the 2012. Before that, we were on the 2009.
We were a little bit behind.
We were a little behind, yes.
All right, well, we'll be caught up very, very, very soon, hopefully as soon as tomorrow night. Rick, anything else you want to add about that, about the community input?
Well, it's huge. I've been working with two other fire jurisdictions, our neighbors, and to make sure we're all on the same page there as well, and to have the stakeholder meetings with the local contractors to get their input and their voice. And once this is accepted by the City Council, I'm sure it will be, then we will reach out to these contractors to have these meetings and set forth what the expectation is per the code.
Okay, very good. Well, before we go to break, or when we get back from break, I should say, I want to talk about what the big changes are. What's new? What does it mean for Cottonwood? And then what's different for Cottonwood, if there's any exceptions to the rules or the policies for the city of Cottonwood. So when we get back, we will talk about what these rules changes mean for you.
There are people who struggle with addiction and homelessness. Sometimes it may feel like there is nothing we can do to help.
But there is. You can make a tax-deductible donation and help those in need transition away from homelessness.
When you give someone a handout, you could actually be supporting an addiction.
A better life starts with better health, especially for those living in the streets.
Support solutions, not addictions. You can make a difference. Visit cottonwoodcares.com.
This is Bruce Morrow, Transportation Manager for Cottonwood Area Transit. Remember, we cover the entire Verde Valley and Sedona. Cottonwood Area Transit has you covered wherever you want to ride in the Verde Valley, all day, every day. Take Cottonwood Area Transit through Clarkdale, Verde Village, and from 26 locations in Cottonwood. With Verde Links, it's a quick and easy trip to Sedona every day. Don't forget our connectors to Camp Verde. Visit cottonwoodaz.gov for Cottonwood Area Transit and take a seat. Let's go ride.
Welcome back to Inside Cottonwood. Again, I am Ron Corbin, Cottonwood City Manager, and today I have our Fire Marshal, Rick Contreras, and our building official, Paul Hodges. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we are talking about the 2018 Building and Fire Codes. It will be adopted, hopefully will be adopted by City Council on May 21st. So when we left, we were going to talk about what's big for us, what the changes mean for the city of Cottonwood. So, Rick, why don't we start with you? What do these new rules mean to us?
Yeah, the code's very vast. We could do a 4-hour show on the codes,
Nope.
but we don't have that time. I think one of the bigger things that stand out, we just brushed on it briefly, was the emergency preparedness. The schools during the lockdown because of active shooters across the country, unfortunately. And we have a great rapport with the local school districts. The superintendent, I have a scheduled meeting with him in June already because of the new code adoption. And some of that is authorization to lock down. Who says we can lock down? If the threat is legitimate, we definitely want to do it. Or we think it really is a threat. Security measures. We still have to, by the fire code, maintain egress. If there's a fire, we still have to get kids out of a building, but if there's a threat of a shooter or something like in that nature, the kids got to be able to lock in place and have a system. They got to have two-way communication.
So it balances your need to get out in case of a fire with the need to secure a building when there's an active shooter on campus.
Absolutely. And so, there's a defend in place, and then there's the be able to still get out. So
wow.
That's what's in Manhattan, New York, and in Oklahoma City versus what's in Cottonwood. It's the intent of the code. And that's why when we have these partnerships with the local school superintendents, that we can meet what the intent of the code is and be safe for our kids.
Okay. And so what about any other big changes or anything that means big for the city of Cottonwood and the fire code?
Well, yeah, and I think you can see mobile food preparation, trucks, trailers, those kind of things. It's getting bigger now. It's more popular. And so the Arizona Fire Marshals Group and the Northern Arizona Fire Marshals Group and the Verde Valley Fire Marshals Group have teamed up. We're going to be on the same page for the inspections, our reports, what we're going to hand out to these folks. And, we're already seeing them popping up in Cottonwood.
We
Good
are.
for them.
Yes.
And
Good food.
we hope they're successful. We like to be business friendly, but above business friendly, I think we are community safe.
Right.
Is a bigger factor, and we want to maintain that.
So whether they drive into Cottonwood or Clarkdale or out in the county, they'll be under the same set of rules.
Absolutely, a same blanket, and that's another great thing about having the great rapport I do with my neighbors, other fire marshals in the community throughout the state. I'm part of the Arizona Fire Marshals Group in Northern and the Verde Valley, so it's a great thing to have good partners.
That seems like a very business-friendly policy or rules.
Absolutely.
It's not kind of what you think of when you think of rules. You think of being hard and forcing things, but you're actually making it easier for compliance and kind of creating this unity in the Verde Valley.
Right, and NFPA is National Fire Protection Association, and they were driving this. They were a big help, and I had many discussions with them over the phone. I've watched their videos, and because before we didn't have too much information to give the food truck, and if a food truck went to Gilbert and then to Cottonwood and then up to Flagstaff, they got all these different kind of rules. So it's nice that they're kind of under this one little blanket per the fire code. Okay,
well, thank you. All right, Paul, what about building codes? What are the big changes that our people should look for?
I think before we start about talking about the code changes, we need to talk about what is a permit required for. Most people don't realize that they need permits for just about anything that's done. If it's plumbing, mechanical, electrical, a building component, they need building permits. And the best thing to do is to come into our office or call us and ask us, I'm going to do this, do I need a permit?
So if they make that phone call, because especially with all the changes, we just put in the 2012 and now we skipped the 15, we put in the 18, so a lot of changes. So if they want to know what they need, they can actually just call?
They can actually just call our office. We have, and I personally will give out my personal cell phone number to people who call with any questions. If they want to come in, I have an open door policy. They can walk right in, go to the counter, say, hey, is a building official in or building inspector? I have some questions.
Okay, so you're right, before we go on to the big changes, the city of Cottonwood also has a review process. So if you got a big project or you got something going on and you want to have the city officials look at it beforehand, Can that happen?
Yes, it can happen. It goes through a code review process, and there's an application you can get at the front counter. Tells you exactly what you need for this code review. You bring your ideas in. I'm going to put a restaurant into this building. What do I need? And we'll all get together and sit down with you. The building official, the fire marshal, the county health is there, or the engineering. We'll all get together and we'll discuss your project with you and say, well, you need to do this, you need to do that, and then we'll give you a written response with what needs to be done if you want to proceed with your project.
That seems helpful. Seems very business friendly there to be able to do that. Is there a big charge for that? Do you know what the charge
It's like
is?
$50 for this
$50.
code review. It's just a minimum charge because we all have to get in there and.
Okay, very good. So now, what about the changes? Anything big? Anything new?
Well, there are the contractors will be dealing with some things, and especially with the energy code compliance.
What do you mean energy code?
Well, we have what's called an energy conservation code. That's one of the model codes that we're adopting, and there are certain paperwork that's going to be the responsibility of the contractors doing the work to make sure that you don't have duct leaks, that your ducts aren't falling apart in the attic space.
And when you say ducts, you're not talking about quack quack.
No, I'm ducts, D-U-C-T. We're talking about what's supplying the air there. Is it venting into the attic? Is it properly insulated? Is the unit big enough for the project that you've got? That kind of thing.
Yeah, I've lived in a house where the air conditioner wasn't big enough, and it really
it
makes it difficult and can cost a significant lot more money. So we've talked about a couple big changes. What about things we didn't do? Is there anything that we're like is special to Cottonwood that we decided not to implement, or any changes to the code that we're asking City Council to adopt that's specific to Cottonwood? Anything that stands out?
The building department didn't put any amendments in there. The only thing I would say would be in our property maintenance code. There's a stipulation for how high the grass can grow. And the city of Cottonwood has that in a city ordinance. Okay. So we chose not to adopt that particular point.
Okay.
But we're going to do tiny homes.
Open for all sorts of ideas.
Yes,
Bring it into code review and let us take a look.
Let's look at it.
Rick, how about the fire code?
Well, same thing. I was just going to touch on what Paul's saying. Same thing. It's not uncommon for an applicant to reach out to maybe fire or building before the code review process if they're still not sure how they're going to do something. That way, when they come to code review, they're more prepared. As far as us in the fire code, we have one of the most positive, proactive fire sprinkler ordinances in the state. It's amazing. Everybody sees when the big hay barn burns down across the street from where we're at now, or the old Catholic church. These were non-sprinkler buildings, but there's been there's a lot of fires that have happened that one fire sprinkler put out and really doesn't get any media. Nobody knows about it, but it's a great thing. We want to stress again the fact that how important fire sprinklers are. They make a huge difference, and we have a great ISO rating because of part of that.
That's where I was going to go. Paul talked about insurance ratings, but when we talk about insurance cost, if you haven't bought a house outside of the city of Cottonwood in a while, and you do that mortgage calculator, boy, does that insurance rate make a difference.
Yeah, it's a 2.
Yeah,
ours is a 2.
I own a couple houses in a couple different places, and the insurance here is significantly less. And I'm told it's because of our fire code and those sprinklers.
That's part of it. And our education, there's a lot that goes into that, but we're happy with that, and we want to maintain that. We want to keep people safe. So this ordinance has been in since 2004. We take good care of it. It's our little egg in the nest, and we want to make sure people are safe.
All right, so when we come back, we're going to go to break here in just a minute. When we come back, I want to talk about economic development. And me and our economic development manager, director, Richard Faust, were quoted in the newspaper not too long ago as we're open for business. And so then I have 2 code guys in here, 2 enforcers, 2 people that must make us follow the rules. So I want to get your opinion on how these rules and these changes and how the city of Cottonwood operates that still allows us to be open for business. So when we return, let's find out if we really are open for business.
There are people who struggle with addiction and homelessness. Sometimes it may feel like there is nothing we can do to help.
But there is. You can make a tax-deductible donation and help those in need transition away from homelessness.
When you give someone a handout, you could actually be supporting an addiction.
A better life starts with better health, especially for those living in the streets.
Support solutions, not addictions. You can make a difference. Visit cottonwoodcares.com.
This is Bruce Marshall, Transportation Manager for Cottonwood Area Transit. Remember, we cover the entire Verde Valley and Sedona. Cottonwood Area Transit has you covered wherever you want to ride in the Verde Valley, all day, every day. Take Cottonwood Area Transit through Clarkdale, Verde Village, and from 26 locations in Cottonwood. With Verde Links, it's a quick and easy trip to Sedona every day. Don't forget our connectors to Camp Verde. Visit cottonwoodaz.gov for Cottonwood Area Transit and take a seat. Let's go ride.
Welcome back to this edition of Inside Cottonwood. I am Ron Corbin, Cottonwood City Manager, and today I have our Fire Marshal, Rick Contreras, and our Building Official, Paul Hodges. Welcome, and thank you again for being here today.
Thank you.
So when we left, we were talking about some of the big changes and all the rules that have to be enforced and the good stuff, in low insurance costs, thanks to our progressive city and our rules. But our economic development team, we have stated, we've gone on the record as saying the City of Cottonwood is open for business. And you two are two of our biggest rule enforcers that we have to, that people have to comply with. There are just some things that have to happen. So if we're open for business, how are you guys helping us be open for business? Or how does the rules?
Well, I think our job is to enforce the intent of the code, enforce the code. It's not what Rick Contreras says; it's what the fire code says. And so we are business friendly. I've been here a long time. I came from California as well, and I've seen the growth in Cottonwood, and it's been great. And so I think the best thing for any applicant, anybody who wants to come in and open a business, is do what Paul said earlier. Reach out to us. Come through the process. Don't just go in and move in, and then you come in on the backside and figure out you didn't do something right, and now you have to pay more money because you didn't do the proper adjustments. So we're always willing to help. We have a great staff, and I think you will find across the city staff that we are open for business, and we want to help out the best we can.
So it sounded like reach out to us. Questions
Absolutely.
or concerns, reach out, and we'll work through the issues together and help you solve what issues are discovered.
Yeah, maybe it's even a business venture you want to do in a year from now. You can, you got to do all this planning and research.
Right.
Well, we're here to help.
Okay, Paul, what about you? How are we open for business?
Well, for one thing, like I said earlier, I have an open door policy, and I keep that for the whole department. If you have any kind of questions, come in and ask us about them. We'll help you as much as we can. I see myself as a facilitator, not as a roadblock for any project that wants to come into town. I want to see us open for business. I want to see businesses come in and thrive. I don't want to see the empty buildings anywhere in this town. So I'm going to do my best to help you get what you want, but in a way that everyone is safe and secure.
Okay, very good. Now, we've got about 5 minutes left, I believe, so I want to talk about two more things first. We've been talking about projects and new stuff and new work. We'll come in, code review, and let the city help you be successful. What about current stuff? Because I'm sure you guys get calls, people complain about their neighbors, or we have inspectors that go out and check things out, and I know like our restaurants are inspected on a regular basis, and you find stuff. How does that work into our code process? So how does inspections of current businesses and companies, how does that work for the city of Cottonwood?
Well, you're right. We do annual inspections on businesses, so we have the authority driven by the fire code that we adopt. And we're not out to shut down all these businesses. It's one of the hardest things of the job. However, when a business owner opens a business, he understands that he has to comply with the fire code. It's for their own safety. It's like 88% of businesses that have a fire, even with insurance, don't recover because they lose that daily income by the time they rebuild, and it's pretty devastating. So that's important. But number one, we want to keep our citizens and our staff safe. But I think you know, it's a work through process. We have another process, just like code review and plan review, for compliance as well. And if we find something, it's our job to enforce the code and the intent of the code.
And so is it like now or never, or do you get some chance to comply, or how do you work with the companies?
It's a little of both. If it's an immediate life safety risk, it's now. You got to get this taken care of right now. If they're chaining doors shut, which I have found before, it's not very common, that's an immediate, get it done now. I'll call the truck, we'll get the fireman key, and we'll take care of ourselves.
Fireman key, I like that.
We don't like to do that though.
Right.
But something minor that we could work through, we give them certain days, 15 days, to fix something. If it's an extinguisher that needs to be retagged by a private company, we might give them 30 days. Okay. And it's a review process and that we follow up with.
Awesome. Paul, anything you want to add about inspections or you know, our inspectors out driving around, or people make phone calls and concerns? How do you guys handle that?
One of the things that I've been impressed with is the backing that the city council and we have from you, our city manager, in our code enforcement issues. We have a lot of absentee landlords. We have these Airbnbs where the buildings are being changed and without permits. And then we go in there and find him, and what was once a single-family residence is now a 3-unit apartment. Oh. And
I'm assuming that's not normally allowed?
That's not normally allowed. No, there's that process to go through, that code review process where we help you get through that process. But we're seeing a lot of that here in town, and our code enforcement division is very proactive. And I have been impressed with our city council. They're saying, no, get this straightened out.
And I also noticed that with our landlords, their absentee landlords, and some of our more rundown homes, I've really noticed since I've been here that the community, that our city staff is working to get those brought up to code and brought those to a more presentable area. I mean, the city council is committed to workforce housing, but we want it to be safe and we want it to be livable conditions. And I've been really impressed with your teams and our other teams, our legal teams and our other engineering teams and all of community development working together to get them up to code to make a vibrant community. Speaking of a vibrant community, so on our logo we are the heart of Arizona wine country, but at the bottom of our logo is a line that says inspiring a vibrant community. So tell me, how do you help us inspire a vibrant community?
Well, I'd say, first of all, for me personally, I'm blessed and fortunate to have the job I have. I love living here. My mom was born and raised in Jerome, my dad in Clarkdale, but I was raised in California. So I've been here a long time. But I've volunteered. I've coached 23 years of baseball here in the community. I used to coach football. I used to coach at the schools, soccer, basketball. And so very fortunate. A lot of the firemen I work with were little kids. I coached them, and now they're all taller than me. So I think helping out, volunteering is a great community spirit here in Cottonwood, and we want to continue that and make it grow because we are growing.
One of our great employees giving back to the community. That is awesome. Well, Paul, you haven't been here quite 20 years yet, but how do you help inspire a vibrant community?
I think the way for me to do it is to take a personal interest in the town. To me, it's almost an emotional thing. I drive through town and I say, this is my town. And some people, including my wife, might think that that's too much, that it's not my town. But that's how I get involved. It's my town, and I want to see my family to be safe. I want them to be able to go into any building in this place and know, without a doubt, that if something happens, they can get out of it.
Well, I think that's important. It talks about ownership and pride in ownership. So thank you. Thank you both for being here today. And this is another edition of Inside Cottonwood.